Jane Kim is joining us now. She is running for mayor of San Francisco, and she's backed by a lot of different groups. I want to talk about that in a minute, but first, Jane, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
No problem at all. Well, you got a lot of good folks on your side. Nina Turner came out and spoke for you recently. You've got Our Revolution, SEI, SEIU, California Nurse Association, and I don't know, dozens of endorsements. But my favorite is the San Francisco League of Pissed Off Voters.
Yes, it's an organization that started in 2004. It's a group of young voters that were trying to get young people to come out to vote against the reelection of George W. Bush, and also encouraging young people, people of color, LGBTQ folks to run for local office. And I was one of those individuals.
Oh, that's fantastic. And I hear you're the first Korean American ever elected in San Francisco.
Yes, that is right.
That's amazing. I can't quite believe that, actually. Okay, but here's a softball. But have you knocked on enough doors? Are you grassroots enough?
Yes, so we have knocked on over 40,000 doors since the end of January. We average anywhere between 1,000 to 2,000 doors every single day. I have never been the candidate with the most money or establishment support. Every time I have won office, it is because of our field campaign and the volunteers that we've gotten, along with our small contributors. This is now my 7th election, and we have always won because we've had a strong ground game.
So, Jane, I'm also fascinated by your opponents. So apparently you're getting big money attack ads against you, funded by real estate industry, big corporations, and tech billionaire Ron Conway. So, okay, let's go through those. Why is the real estate industry attacking you?
Well, I have been someone that has supported a lot of housing, but I negotiate hard, and I have won more affordable and middle-income housing than any other city legislator in the last 8 years, meaning that I asked our developers to do a lot when they build here in San Francisco. I've also been a strong proponent of tenant protections and ensuring that landlords don't proceed with unfair or greed-incentivized evictions here in San Francisco, which has increasingly become an issue over the last 5 years. I'm a strong proponent of Proposition F here in San Francisco, which affords a right to counsel to any of our tenants in an eviction proceeding, ensuring that our tenants get the representation that they need to protect their homes.
Yeah, well, if you're standing up for consumers against big business, yeah, they'll attack you. And in our insane system of government, they're allowed to just spend as much as they like attacking you. But I want to talk about the homeless crisis in San Francisco because it is significant. And you say that as the mayor, that is one of the things that you'll address. I am curious. So we'll get back to the tech billionaire attacking you in a second. But I'm curious, what would you do about the homeless crisis? It's a hell of a problem.
It's a huge issue. And I think it's important to understand how this crisis developed in our country. There was a time in our country's history when the federal government was in the business of building housing, and HUD's budget was larger than the Department of Defense. And in our heyday between 1940 and 1980, the federal government did build subsidized working class and middle class housing. When Reagan came into the office, he ran under the platform that of small government, that the government should do less and that the market should do more. And he then passed the biggest tax cuts on the richest individuals and corporations in our nation at the time. And part of how he funded it was by, of course, cutting funding to HUD. And over Reagan, Bush, and Clinton's administration, we saw HUD's budget cut by 50%. And there's a great graph, you can look it up online. As HUD's budget goes down, homelessness emerges as a crisis in cities across the nation. So when we decided that the market should take care of housing, the poor, the working class, and now, frankly, even the middle class, we're finding that the market actually does not take care of all of us. So for us to address the homelessness crisis 40 years later, we do simply have to build more subsidized housing. That is going to mean a progressive taxation revenue where we ask those that are doing well to help contribute to us both preserving and building housing and also providing rent subsidies. The invisible side of homelessness that many people don't realize is that the fastest growing segment of our homeless count in San Francisco, but also New York City and LA, are actually working mothers. They're single mothers with children and jobs. So we have to greatly expand our rent subsidy program so that people can afford to live in the cities that they work in.
Yeah, if you're saying you're going to tax the rich to help the homeless, you're going to have a lot of enemies. And
Well,
yeah,
I always argue that this work is not altruistic. It is actually very selfish. We are all better off. I am safer. Our companies and their employees are safer when we actually help house people and make education affordable and create pipelines to jobs.
so I'm going to risk getting in the weeds a little bit more here, okay, more housing will definitely help. And Utah had an amazing program where
Yes.
they actually fixed homelessness by building homes. It's the most logical thing, and they saved a ton of money. So I understand all that. But what do you do with not an insignificant percentage of the homeless that are mentally ill or addicted to drugs and cannot maintain a house, et cetera?
Yeah. I'm the only elected official here in San Francisco that took the Coalition on Homelessness Challenge to spend a night in one of our homeless shelters and also go through the entire shelter reservation system. And I learned a tremendous amount that night. One, I learned that shelters are built for someone like me, young, able bodied, but down on my luck, and I need just a bed for a couple of months while I get my feet back up. That is not who is coming into our shelter system today. People are far older and far sicker than I had realized. And we cannot just treat homelessness as an economic and poverty issue. It is a public health crisis as well. After that stay, I fought to get full-time nurses in all of our single adult homeless shelters, and they now exist and they are doing amazing work. In fact, if you are homeless on our streets, you need to see a nurse every single day, not once a week or once a month. And I also convinced our mayor to grant our office $6 million. And we built out a 24-hour medical shelter, not staffed by minimum wage staff members like our other shelters, but staffed by nurses, clinicians, and psychologists. So we can actually treat people who are sick and living on our streets. I want to greatly expand this program. It's only 75 beds. We need at least 1,000 of these beds here in San Francisco.
So why is this billionaire coming after you? What's his beef?
Well, I think here in San Francisco, people always joke about how we are the city of the far left and the left. But what I've found in San Francisco is that everyone here is progressive on social issues and that everyone is progressive until money is involved. So when it comes to regulating our industries or about progressive taxation measures, asking those with the most to invest greatly in our communities, our city for housing and education and police and our roads, that is where the rubber hits the road and where some of the private sector who don't want to contribute fight back.
Yeah. Usually that's exactly how it goes. And that's why the Republicans have such a huge advantage in a system that rewards private financing of elections. Because the private financiers have a literal financial interest in making sure they support lower taxes, deregulation, and not helping the poor and the middle class. Because they say that it's my money, I want to keep it, is their argument. That's why we got to have public financing. But there's also something else interesting happening in your race. You and a fellow candidate are working together. That's really weird. Why?
Well, here in San Francisco, we have instituted ranked choice voting, which ensures that the greatest percentage of voters participate. Because what we often saw is that there's a voter decline in participation between the general election and the runoff election. So we've instituted ranked choice voting, where voters get to pick their number one, number two, and number three choice. And if your number one candidate doesn't make it in the top set of candidates, then their votes go up to other candidates. If, for example, we were under the traditional election cycle where there's a general election and a runoff, and if I lost, I would then likely endorse who I thought was the most progressive candidate in the race. Because all of that is happening in one election, State Senator Mark Leno and myself have decided to go forward and tell our supporters to rank the other candidate number two. It is more than just about my campaign or his campaign. We want to ensure that San Francisco has a government that is independent and will represent all of us.
All right, it sounds like unity to me, and it's even before an election, so fun. I love to see progressives sticking together. And it's great to see them fighting for your campaign and for you guys to do what you're doing with the other candidate. All right, we'll have the links down below for Jane Kim and how to help her, donate, volunteer, etc. And the website's super easy, janekim.org. Jane, thank you so much and good luck in the race.
Thank you so much for having me. It's always a pleasure to be on Young Turks.